Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Gonzii and today we are going to be reacting to another casual geographic video, mate. This time called Animals That Got a Middle Finger from Evolution. But before we start, yes, I look like a teenager again. I don't know why, sometimes it happens. So without further ado, let's go, mate.
Evolution is a bitch named Emily.
A bitch named Emily. That makes sense.
Don't get me wrong, the concept of evolution is pretty cool.
It is.
It's the reason
Look at
Jurassic
this
gets to
shit,
flex their high
man.
in
I
the
look like
entire
a
animal
teenager,
There are
what?
just times where nature and evolution decide to team up and absolutely hoe an animal's entire existence.
That's facts,
But
that's
here are
facts
10
though.
animals that I
That's
personally
facts.
think got
Drink
done the
water.
dirtiest. It's not exactly in order, but obviously some animals are going to get violated more flagrantly than others. And I say that because if this list were actually in order, the octopus would probably medal at the Oppression Olympics for... Well, let me explain. Octopus are highly intelligent and scientists believe they have the same cognitive ability as a 2-year-old human. Which might not seem impressive, but that means octopus are on the same IQ level as some dogs.
Damn!
They're even smart enough to use tools, whether it's using the
Ooh, a
tentacles of the
see-through
venomous
octopus,
manowar as a
dude.
weapon, which they actually do, or carrying a coconut around to keep as a travel-sized panic room.
They do as well. I knew that too.
But being smart is the only thing they have going for them. First of all, most octopus come into the world
That's
as
so
orphans.
cute,
The
man.
mother octopus will spend months guarding and washing her nursery
That's
of
a
up
lot
to
of eggs, man.
50,000 eggs. Since it's too dangerous to leave them alone, and since there's no daycare underwater, she often won't eat the entire time. Which means once the clutch of eggs are finally ready to hatch, the mother is shriveling, starving, and ready to become initials on a Twitter bio. Struggle doesn't end there. In fact, that's when it starts.
Dang.
These babies the size of a grain of rice have to figure out life in an ocean full of animals that'll actually try to put an end to it. It's so bad that out of the 50,000 children, if more than 2 survive to adulthood, it's considered overachieving. That honestly wouldn't be a big deal if nature
Out of 50,000 eggs, yeah, only 2 survive.
didn't already
That's
nerf them with their
actually
lifespan.
mad.
It's
That's
so
actually
ridiculously
mad, bro.
short that a majority
That's
of
actually
octopus
mad.
species that live life to the fullest still won't be alive for their first birthday. Being an octopus means you can be born on New Year's, have a midlife crisis by June, only to be a memory by October. Giving an animal high intelligence just to cut its life after 1 to 2 years
I've
just
seen this
seems like
clip.
an
He's
intentional
gonna
thing
punch
to
a
do.
fish, dude. Yeah.
And because they have no shell or no armor, they'd honestly be lucky to live that long.
That's
Having no
true.
real way to defend themselves means a good number of them end up a sea lion's chew toy or a dolphin's frisbee. To be fair, octopus do have camouflage. In some cases, highly toxic venom. But for the most part, they get bodied by most of the ocean. And to add insult to injury, every octopus you see is probably a virgin because once they get laid, they die. We already saw what happens to the mother, but where did daddy at? Once the male octopus mates, he basically just gives up on life. The male octopus that's catched in his V-card will swim around
Wild.
catatonically until he either gets torn apart by predators or dies of starvation as his body falls apart due to senescence. Not like it really matters because most female octopus are bigger than the males and sometimes they'll attack and cannibalize him during. But
Like
one
a
thing's for
praying
sure, if his
mantis,
date doesn't
dude.
put him out of commission, his post-nut clarity will. Octopus don't
Not
live long,
the-
but for the months
my
they're alive, their
God,
entire
I'm
existence
childish.
is a jihad. Now you know why Squidward couldn't give a if a paid him.
That's
At
true.
least with the octopus, it just seems to be really bad luck. They may be a victim of circumstance, but at least you get the idea that nature didn't go out of its way to screw them. Not like with this bird. Kiwi bird is probably the best
Oh,
proof
bro,
that
the
evolution-
kiwi got
This tiny
shafted,
bird is
dude.
actually part of the rat-type family. And this cookout includes
Yeah.
ostriches, emus, cassowaries, and the rheas.
Oh,
But
man.
unlike its bigger cousins, this bird that shares its name with a fruit is about 18 inches tall and no more than 7 pounds. It's kind of like having cousins 6'3", 6'4", and 6'6", yet you came out looking like Tory Lanez. Like your
Facts.
family's tall enough to fit in an NBA locker room, yet you get it from a chair and stay the same height. But of course, nature wasn't done screwing with this bird because like its
Bro.
relatives, they can't fly.
They
Totally
cannot
flightless,
fly,
despite being
man.
related to ostriches
They don't
of
have
Jurassic Park and
arms.
A bird that literally won a war against Australia.
Viva
Kiwi's
la
about as
emu.
defenseless as the fruit that got named after it. Basically, you're looking at a bird that can't bird.
It
The
can't
kiwi
bird.
is such light work that they can only survive on islands without any mammalian predators because they're really a couple stray cats away from being put in the history books.
Nani?
And somehow, that's not it. Because nature shrunk everything about this bird.
One
Everything
thing!
except the eggs
Look
they
at
have to
the
push out of
size
their
of the
body.
egg,
Despite
bro.
being about 60 times smaller, kiwis
Bro.
have to deal with eggs nearly the same.
Bro, this is fucked up, man. And you know when an ostrich is, yeah? It's all big. Emu, a bit shorter than an ostrich, but same thing. The kiwi, dude. Kiwis are about this size, bro. About this size. And the egg is like, nah, bro, that's
Ostrich.
messed up.
And at 20% of
That's
its
smart.
body weight, that would be
That's
like the average
smart.
woman birthing a 35-pound baby with the same equipment. It's such a hell to live that the egg actually rearranges the bird's organs and stretches its ribcage. There's too many things wrong with them for me not to think nature had serious beef with this
thing.
bird. Especially when you realize the kiwi's closest ancestor was
The
the elephant bird,
yeah.
which was about 10 feet, 1,600 pounds. So yeah, they got nerfed bad. At
Nerfed
least they didn't get hit as
bad.
hard as, say, the sloth. For being completely
Oh
honest,
yeah,
here, the
sloth
has
is just
almost
the most
nothing going for
blanket,
it.
bro.
Because they insisted
That's
on
it,
eating
mate.
nothing but leaves, their diet makes them one of the slowest animals on the planet. Because they physically can't afford to spend energy they don't have, because going into debt
Who
would
are
mean
the
death.
scientists
It's
that
to the
spend
point where
their
baby
time
sloths have to
watching
literally hold on for
sloth,
dear life,
bro?
because if it falls to the jungle floor, the mother
That
likely won't
is
waste the
just
energy
not
trying to get it back.
entertaining, is
And
it?
that's because if you're a sloth, leaving this tree is the most dangerous thing you'll ever do. Sloths only poop about once a week, and when they do, they'll climb out of the tree and get on the ground to do it. Why they don't just
Why?
drop a deuce from the trees, I couldn't tell you. Nobody knows what goes on in their heads. But this means about half of all sloth deaths involve
That
getting
image
trapped
is
on the
weird.
toilet like Elvis. One thing sloths have going for them is that they're so mind-numbingly slow that algae actually grows on them, giving them free camouflage. There's a catch. There is always a catch.
Always.
When one of your biggest ops is an eagle with quite literally some of the best eyes in the world, wearing a moss blanket isn't going to amount to too much.
Oh my, that
And
was
you
an
know
RP
evolution was
eagle, that
active
was.
with them because sloths are actually
Jeez.
really good swimmers and can hold their breath for 40 minutes, longer than dolphins and seals. But it means almost nothing when most of the time they go swimming is by accident when they fall out of a tree. And that weak ass doggy paddle might save them from
my
drowning, but it
God.
won't save them from getting murked by an anaconda.
Anaconda
or
or black caiman,
The really
bro.
sad part is, sloths could actually be way better than this. Its close relatives, the armadillo and anteater, are able to put the same claws that it has to good use, and anteaters have even been known to swing on jaguars. You have a homicidal vacuum cleaner that has put jaguars
Wait.
and people in coffins.
That hook
and then
was
you have a
mean,
moss
bro.
blanket with a face. Just like the kiwi, the sloth used to be better than this. Megatherium, aka the giant
Oh,
ground
yes,
sloth, was in the
true.
same weight class as elephants, and they actually knew how to use those claws. So much so that if Ice Age were realistic, Sid would have worn Diego's ass like a fur coat. But its massive size ended up screwing it in the end, as they basically got hunted into oblivion by humans, leaving us now with the virtually defenseless, dead-eyed, slower than molasses algae apartment that we call the sloth. You know that thing on TV where it's like someone gets a genie that grants wishes, but only does so in a way that horribly bends them over in the end, and the moral's supposed to be careful what you wish for?
Yes.
That basically sums up this next animal, because it looks like it got finessed by a genie in one of the most disrespectful ways possible. This is a fiddler crab. Male fiddlers have one giant brolic claw whose only purpose is to get a female's attention.
The amount of
The crab's
jokes,
shoes are
bro.
made based on who has the biggest claw, and
The
therefore
amount
genes to her clutch
of
eggs.
jokes.
The problem is, that is literally the only thing this claw is good for.
Yep.
Because that claw is too big to pick up food, the male fiddler crab can only feed himself with that smaller claw.
Jesus.
That massive claw is actually a disability that means the males either eat half the food or take twice as long as the females.
Damn.
The only problem with that is that these crabs only eat during low tide, and the longer the crab spends eating, the more likely they are to end up as someone else's main dish. In the evolutionary arms race for female validation, the male fiddler crab is more likely to end up getting eaten by gulls, raccoons, reptiles, and sometimes even bigger crabs. And since the females enable this by
Ooh,
being
that's
attracted
a
to the bigger but
gorgeous
less
crab,
functional
bro.
claws, the
All
fiddler is now
blue?
trapped in a vicious cycle. By preferring males with a trait that quite literally gets them put on a shirt, the females indirectly screw the next generation. Now to be careful what you wish for, especially if you're this next animal. Because the peacock has the same problem on steroids. We can all agree that the peacock is the biggest flexer in
It
the animal
is.
kingdom, and
That's
rightfully
a
so.
flexer,
and just like with
boy.
the crab and basically every other aspect of life, bigger is most certainly better. The more colorful and eye-catching, the better the peacock's chances at bagging a peahen. They'll even shimmy their tail feathers in a way that hypnotizes any female watching. But like I said, never make a deal with a genie.
Nope.
Because the good news is a peacock
Hey,
showing
yo.
off will always be the center of attention. Bad news is sometimes that attention
Yes.
comes from a 700-pound assault weapon with stripes. And because those tail feathers are so heavy, not
Bro.
only can't the peacock see behind itself, even if it does
Look
see
at
the
that.
knife coming, it
Hey,
takes
may
a
I
while to
see
get off
you?
the ground
Come
out
here,
of the
dude.
tiger's reach.
I
Just like
see
with
it.
the crab, the peacock's biggest flex is often what gets it buried.
It is.
In a cruel twist from fate, the peacocks that are safer from tigers are usually the ones that get less attention from females. So by having a preference, the peahens
Gone.
lead their future children to a fate of ultimately
Got
ending up as
him.
a tiger's toothpick. The peacock and fiddler both got handed massive L's from nature, but at least you can see the thought process.
Yeah, you can see the thought
Having
process
huge claws and
behind it.
fancy feathers attracts females, so technically it does serve a purpose. In comparison, the Luna moth got shafted for no reason at all. To make a long story
gorgeous,
short,
though.
adult Luna moths don't have a mouth and therefore can't eat. The only thing keeping them alive is the energy they store as caterpillars, but once that runs out, so does their time. Luna moths live for
How?
about a week, just long enough to reproduce and doom their children to the same fate of a non-consensual hunger
Bro,
strike.
it's
If you
a
ask
vicious
Google why the Luna moth
cycle.
doesn't have a mouth, it'll tell you because its only purpose is to mate. Which is really nature not giving a fraction of a about that.
It is.
Yeah, that's cruel. Question is, what could possibly be crueler? Well, if you know what this is, you probably have the answer. This is a sea louse. It's
Sea
a member of the
louse.
Caligidae family of copepods, which is basically just a bunch of small crustaceans. Now, you probably noticed that for the peacocks and the crabs, it was the guys getting the worst of it. Apparently, nature believes in a weird form of equality because right now it's up for the girls. The horror show starts when a male sea louse kidnaps a much smaller female and then forcibly drags her into what I can only describe as a crustacean sex dungeon, where he can have up to 20 other victims also trapped. It's at this moment where this movie loses its rating because the male will forcibly impregnate every last female.
Hey, yo!
This often involves penetrating her abdomen. Don't worry, It gets worse. As her brood of children that she never asked for begin to grow, they decide to start eating their way out. Eventually, the mother's body splits open as her nursery of psychopaths rush out of her now mutilated husk of a corpse. This might be one of the only times where the babies abort the mother. Doesn't even really get to give birth. Her children just bring her death. You might be wondering why evolution would even give this nonsense the green light. Well, the newborn sea louse are entering an ocean full of danger, and having a full meal before they make it out on their own apparently increases their chance of survival. And by cannibalizing their own mother, it's basically a home-cooked meal. Somehow, this isn't even the worst birth on this list. That title belongs to the hyenas.
Oh yeah, hyenas.
Better than what they go through. Female hyenas evolved a pseudo-penis that's
Lion King and nature hate hyenas, boy. They have to give birth through this, bro.
Only problem is, it's not just for show.
How does it give birth through that thing? They have the biggest babies as well out of
just
the
to somehow make it even worse relative to
mammals.
their size, hyenas have to give birth to the largest cubs of any carnivore, and they have to do it through a penis.
No mammals can.
First-time mothers don't even survive this because the process involves rupturing and splitting open the pseudo to make it easier for the cub. But the cubs don't get it easy either. About 60% of hyena cubs will suffocate on the way out and become past tense before technically even joining the present. And you would think, because this directly affects the mother and the cub, that evolution would have patched this. But apparently nature and Lion King have something in common when it comes to doing hyenas dirty.
Got him. Gone.
But if we're talking about an animal that got done dirty,
hyenas have the biggest cubs of all the canines.
This is probably going to be the thumbnail because this is nature at its grimiest. A lot of y'all probably knew this animal is coming just from reading the title, but for those of you that didn't, that was the skull of the babirusa. It's a wild pig found in Indonesian islands like Sulawesi. If you already knew that, it's probably because of those teeth. Those tusks penetrate out of its snout only to do a complete 180 and head right back towards its face. If the male babirusa can't wear down this hellish overbite or he doesn't lose them in a fight, then the teeth will end up growing right back into his head, penetrating the skull and ultimately piercing the brain. The worst part of it all is that by the time it gets clapped by its own dental plan, the babirusa's probably already had children and therefore passed on its bullshit to its kids. It's a lot like Parkinson's. Okay, hear me out. The problem with Parkinson's is that it usually develops late in life, usually around the age of 60. And patients can have it for years without being diagnosed. So by the time they do find out, it's possible they could have already had kids and grandkids that they could have passed it off to. See the problem, right? The only good thing is that it's somewhat rare for a child to inherit Parkinson's from their parents. The babirusa, not so lucky. And as long as females find big tusks attractive, and as long as the tusks like them after they've had babies, this pig is going to be screwed eternally, and evolution can't even stop it. But when you talk about being sodomized by the fleshy phallus of nature, you're probably talking about cheetahs. If you watch Tirzu, if you're watching this, you probably do. You probably heard him say that cheetahs are F-tier garbage that either need to be buffed or just vaulted out of their misery. I love cheetahs, I really do, but
I used to as well, man, but they just take L's, bro. The other day I saw three cheetahs eating, and one hyena came up and just stole the food, bro.
Cheetahs are a textbook example of why you should never dump all your evolution points on skill, because you'll just get bent over in every other aspect of life. Because they're built for speed and absolutely nothing else, cheetahs often get bullied by other predators, especially lions and hyenas. And because cheetahs have to expend so much energy just to make a kill, it forces them to rest right after, which makes it really easy for other animals to step in and run their pockets.
What?
But for real, if you're a cat and a bird that literally only eats the dead is able to run you off, you got a lot of problems. Worst part is, cheetahs could easily avoid all of this. Leopards are also lightweight solitary hunters that occasionally get their food stolen, but they're able to carry their kills up the trees so they can't get harassed by scavengers. But in the evolutionary race for speed, cheetahs evolved non-retractable claws to use as cleats to keep traction while running. Which is why cheetahs can't climb trees, so they gotta get violated on the ground. Cheetahs are such pushovers that one hyena can successfully rob several cheetahs right in their face and then dare them to do something about it. Cheetahs compromised everything for speed, so now they get to speed run through life. About 70% of cheetah cubs born in the wild will be 6 feet under before their first birthday. And just to add on to that, because why the hell not, thanks to genetic bottleneck, a majority of the cheetah population is highly inbred. What you're looking at is a cat that doesn't really know how to cat. Because instead of roaring like lions, tigers, and leopards, the best this spotted doormat can do is chirp like a bird. Matter of fact, if you YouTube it real quick, you'll find they make every sound that isn't a roar.
That's wild, bro.
And that's how you know evolution went.
What the hell, bro?
Cheetahs have been around for about 3 million years and decided they were just gonna IM speed their way through life. And because of that, unless it's a 100-meter dash or a bird call contest, this overgrown house cat loses every single time. Obviously, there's a lot of good things about the cheetah, but not nearly enough to justify the abuse they go through. Which is probably why a majority of cheetahs in captivity experience anxiety so bad that it prevents them from mating and they need an emotional support dog. Which is cute, don't get me wrong, but it's another reason why cheetahs are dangerously close to being the pandas of cats, and that's not something anyone wants to be. And don't get it twisted, I don't enjoy roasting cheetahs, I actually really love them, but if nature has favorites, this Cheetos mascot isn't one of them. And those are 10 animals that got the middle finger from evolution.
They did do.
I'm not gonna lie to you, this video was low-key a pain to make. So if
Hey,
you like
great
the video,
video,
and
man.
support this channel. My Patreon's gonna be in the description, but please,
Go subscribe to
please,
bro.
don't give money if you can't afford it. Because
Yes,
honestly,
exactly.
I don't need money. I just wanted to cover my crippling Wendy's addiction.
Hmm.
Subscribing doesn't cost you anything, so think about it.
So there you have it, guys. There were 10 animals that got the middle finger from evolution, bro. Shout out to Casual Geographic, homie stays the GOAT. He's the GOAT, man. And yeah, man, go subscribe to him, go follow, go to his Patreon if you can afford it, like he said. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching the video, man. I hope you had a great weekend. And yeah, man, my weekend was good. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching the video, man. Hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. Before you go, though, don't forget that we have videos on the channel, bro. Keep God first, as always. Drink water, go tell somebody who loves them, and if you're here, you know what to do, man. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. My name is Gonzii, and invest some more. Goodbye.